Imagine yourself as the governor of a far-off imperial world. Your world has been recently visited by the mysterious black ships. You as governor are forced to comply with orders given, to hand over the planet's population of psychers over to the authorities, in order to help fuel the Golden Throne. However, your child and heir is a psyker as well. Why should you hand over your own flesh and blood? You have the resources to hide the child from these Sisters of Silence, and you do so. Eventually, the black ships leave, and you are happy to continue life on as normal. That night, however, you hear a terrible scream. You rush to see what has created such a sound, and the scene you come across is something ripped out of the nightmare, as you witness your child, the psyker you had refused to hand over to the black ships, morph into a grotesque living gateway of flesh. As you watch in horror, a monstrous entity pulls itself out of what was your child. Then another follows, and then another. You try to scream, you try to run, but it's too late. The enslavers are here, and they will feast upon your mind and upon the minds of the people of your world. Hello, I'm your dark host this night, Shadow, and tonight I bring you information that I've accumulated about tonight's topic, the mind-eating enslavers. Together, we will figure out what the enslavers are, where they come from, and how have they played their part in the history of the galaxy of Warhammer 40K. So, check under your beds, check your closets, and make sure to send your unsanctioned psychers away, and let's dive in. Enslavers have been known by many names, such as sirens, Krell, puppeteers, and dominators. Enslavers are foremost a creature of the warp, just another reason why the warp really sucks, but seem to do their hunting and feeding in the material world. These interdimensional monstrosities have a physical form, described as being in a similar appearance to a hybrid cross between a jellyfish and an arachnid. They are said to be spherical or barrel-shaped, and are said to be larger than an average human. Enslavers are able to change their skin color at will, though are noted to normally appear to be a brownish color. The skin of an enslaver is apparently also tough and leathery. I do not envy the person who got to find that out. Enslavers tend to sport anywhere between 8 to 12 tentacles, often coming in a white or pinkish coloration. These are what these monsters use to help with their movement, catching prey, sensing, and manipulating objects. Enslavers primarily move around by floating up to 3 meters off the ground, and their speed should not be underestimated. Thankfully, these vile creatures do not really have the ability to fly above that, however, are able to climb rapidly, utilizing their many tentacles. Inquiries by the Imperial Inquisition has been unable to determine the sentience of the intelligence of these beings. Enslavers have been recorded to have been able to work in concert with one another as a group, suggesting intelligence. However, these creatures have never ever communicated with another species, nor have they ever been recorded utilizing any form of technology themselves. Being creatures of the warp, enslavers can practically travel anywhere, just as long as they can get a viable connection to an untrained psyker. Much like demons, a group of 3 enslavers will track and possess an untrained psyker by psychically creating a link between the enslavers and the psyker. In an agonizing process that takes between 50 to 72 standard hours, the unfortunate victim will first become lethargic and tired. Then the victim's skin will start to discolor unnaturally, and eventually the victim's flesh will swell, change, disintegrate, and form into a disgusting and grotesque warpgate of pulsating flesh. The unfortunate psyker, of course, dies in this process, and the formation of a hole in reality allows the trio of enslavers to enter our reality. Once they enter the materium, these monstrosities will start to psychically force their will upon the unfortunate souls they come across, creating thralls for the enslavers to utilize. Though it is noted this psychic puppeteering is usually only viable in a 50-meter radius. These minds the enslavers enthrall are consumed, making the enslavers stronger. Additionally, the enslavers will hunt for more psychers to feed on and turn into more warp gates, allowing more and more enslavers to enter the materium. If the infestation of enslavers worsens, with enough enslavers to take over an entire hive city, or even an entire planet, the entire world may be deemed lost and can be subject to exterminatus. It is noted, however, that a sanctioned psyker that has been trained to have their mind honed is able to stave off and resist possession by enslavers. Though if there are many psychically gifted minds in one place, an enslaver may be overwhelmed by the many minds that would need to be dominated and would be open to physical attack. The history on enslavers goes back long before the recorded memory of the Imperium and of mankind, if these borrowed Eldari records can be believed. Over 60 million years ago, during the fabled War in Heaven, the galaxy was plunged into another crisis called the Enslaver Plague. The Old Ones, in their galactic war against the Catan and their Necron armies, created many psychically gifted species, and as the war grinded on and on, the warp would be completely destabilized, fueled by the deaths of uncountable souls and entire sentient species. This destabilization not only fueled and strengthened chaos, it had created many other malignant warp entities, including that of the Enslavers. The Enslavers would invade the galaxy en masse, becoming a plague and a predator to the Old Ones and their creations. The Old Ones, exhausted in their galactic fight against the Catan, could not stop the doom of their species, as the Enslavers would consume the last of them and would even continue to plague the Old One's successor species for a time. The loss of so many intelligent species also denied the Catan their source of souls to feed on, ultimately setting the stage for the enslaved Necrons to revolt against their star gods. Since then, there has never been another incursion of Enslavers on the same scale, though they have remained a continuous and common enough threat to all of the sentient species of the galaxy. Reports of encounters between the Imperium and Enslavers have been seen as early as M41 and even M42. Among these encounters include the fall of Hive Scorpios, documented by Inquisitor Malin of the Ordo Xenos. Quote, "Call them what you will, Krell, Sirens, or Enslavers, just one witch, unsanctioned, caused the destruction of Hive Scorpios, when one of those things used her brain as a gateway to this world. Within 3 days, the entire Hive's population was reduced to drooling mind slaves. Within 3 weeks, an entire continent was at war, and all because the governor thought his family should be exempt from the Psyker Call, and refused to give his daughter to the Black Ships." Another incident back in M36, known as the Nemesis Incident, saw the elite First Company of the Storm Wardens chapter encounter a number of enslavers, including organisms that were called enslaver behemoths. Nothing has been noted on what made these behemoths different from their normal enslaver counterparts, though the implication of more dangerous subspecies is a terrifying report to behold. Inquisitorial files additionally report numerous encounters with the enslavers within the Scintilla system and M41, leading to the destruction of many vile monstrosities. Later in M42, it is also reported that an Ark of Omen of the Black Legion, the Blackened Tower, was heavily damaged by attacks originating from enslavers. Not even the powers of chaos and their forces are safe from the predation of these monstrosities. As for my own thoughts on this brand of horrible entity from the warp, I find them to be a terrible eldritch nightmare that is indeed in the rankings for some of the worst things in Warhammer 40K. The Enslavers are an example of a non-chaos entity from the warp, displaying just how horrifying the warp truly is, as now you not only need to fear literal demons, but also floating jellyfish spiders that eat your mind and control you like a puppet. I can also see why some people see the Enslavers as a virus of sorts, breaking into the materium and then spreading by turning more and more psychers into horrifying flesh portals. Also, I find it awesome and good world building with how the Enslavers have many names, displaying just how large their reach is, that different areas of the galaxy and peoples have come up with their own names for these warp entities. These creatures are anathema to all sentient life, and in my view, have some similarities with both the Tyranids and the Crave. The Enslavers' coordination and groups and psychic control of thralls display that they probably have some form of intelligence of some kind, though, just like the Tyranids, they do not communicate with us. Perhaps this implies that Enslavers potentially see us only as prey, an ant to their boot, to say. Though unfortunately, we may never know for sure. There is no evidence as of now to suggest that the Enslavers have a hive mind, pretty much ending any other possible similarities between these creatures of the warp and the Tyranid menace. As for the Enslaver similarities with the Crave, they both are immensely psychically powerful and appear to feed on the same thing: sentient minds, though this is where most similarities end, as the Enslavers do not appear to have the ability to control their thralls from systems away, not to mention how the Crave are a species of the Materium, while the Enslavers are creatures of the Immaterium. It is interesting seeing how Enslavers have remained a constant threat to the Imperium and everyone else for millions of years so far. They have no lord, no king to slay to remove most of their threat. They simply just exist, and can pretty much strike anywhere that has a psyker that can be used to travel to the material world. Now, would you survive an Enslaver incursion? It appears that the best way to beat the Enslavers is to be proactive. Unsanctioned psykers must be culled, given to the Black Ships, or properly trained to be able to resist possession in the first place. Without a doorway in, your world will be safe from these monstrosities, one less threat to possibly need to deal with. If you are unfortunate enough to already be in the midst of an incursion, surrounding yourself with a multitude of sanctioned psychers would help ensure your safety at least better than if you were alone. With this group, you must act quickly to either leave the planet or slay the enslavers present before they have the chance to summon more of themselves from the immaterium and take over the minds of most of the population. If you wish to read or research the enslavers yourself, they are mentioned or appear in the 3rd and 5th edition Necron Codexes. They also appear in Warhammer Rogue Trader, 1st edition, the novel Innocence Proves Nothing, and the Liber Xenologus. I really hope that we get more content on the Enslavers in the future. Why don't they appear in more books, James? And with that, dear viewers, was the Enslavers. Thank you for sticking around and learning about these spider jellyfish monsters with me tonight. And also, before you go, I wish to give a huge thank you to all of you for 150, now over 175 subscribers. Your support is appreciated so much. So, thank you all again. I wish you all have a wonderful night and hope to see you next time. Ave Dominus Nox.